Good evening. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Monday, Yom Sheni. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house on a Monday? Gosh, that's bright. Okay. I'll be bright today. Who's in the house? Yehud in South Carolina, Renee in Indiana, Karen in Northern California, Melissa in Great Neck. This light is going to drive me bananas. Hold on a second. Let's see. It's a little better. Okay. Melissa in Great Neck, Lucy in Minnesota, Shandor in the Bronx, Paul in the Great Northwest, Lorraine in Texas, Joseph and Sarah in Nevada, Guy in Ohio, Joe in the Inland Empire, Bill in Missouri, Sharon in New Jersey, Bella in Florida, Bob in Florida, Renee says, sing it, Sal. I love it. I love the music so much. Doris in New York State, Michelle in Jupiter, I assume that means Florida, Aoife in Florida, Alan in New York City, Ella in Southern California, Chaim in Florida, Marie in Freeport, New York. Welcome, everybody. Somebody sent us some pictures today. Our posters are starting to go up. They're up in New York City. They're up in LA. There's going to be 7 other cities. See if you see a Guns N' Moses poster in your locale. Remember, the movie opens, wow, I can't believe it, a week from Friday on July 18th. And tickets go on sale on the 10th. What's today? The 7th. So I think that's... the 8th is Tuesday. The 9th is Wednesday. Oh my gosh, this Thursday, tickets go on sale for Guns N' Moses. I know you all want to see it and come out opening weekend. Okay, let's get to it. I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to just confirm this now, that today is July 7th, and in the regular Daf Yomi calendar, the daf today is page 19, and we're doing a double daf today, and we are catching up. We made it. We were 2 weeks behind, maybe a little more than 2 weeks behind, and with God's help, we have caught up, or we will by the end of today. We're going to pick this up near the bottom of page 18a. Our dafs today are 18 and 19. Continuing our discussion of Mishnah number 8 in chapter 1. Of Tractate Avoda Zara, the 27th volume of the Talmud. So, yesterday we were talking about Rabbi Hanania ben Teradyon, who was one of the 10 martyrs, who was executed in a horrible death by the Romans for teaching Torah in violation of their decree. And we learned that his wife was also killed, and his daughter was taken away to be enslaved in a brothel. Terrible, terrible. But interesting what actually ended up happening to her. Now, he had 2 daughters. One was, what was her name? Did it say? I think it just said her daughter, his daughter. Or was it Sophia? I can't remember right now. The other daughter of Hanania ben Teradyon. Did it say her name? I'm not sure that it said her name, right? It was just said his wife and his daughter. But the other daughter was the very, very famous woman of the Talmud, Bruria. Now, Bruria is one of the great heroes of the Talmud and a sage, literally a sage in her own right, with tremendous, tremendous Torah learning. Her father was the great sage Hanania ben Teradyon, and her husband was Rabbi Meir, who we talk about all the time. Right? Rabbi Meir is one of the most frequently cited sages in the Talmud, and in fact, an anonymous Mishnah, when there's a Mishnah that's worded anonymously, usually it was formulated by Rabbi Meir. So what's going to happen? So Beruria was Rabbi Meir's wife. The Gemara relates, Beruria, the wife of Rabbi Meir, was the daughter of Rabbi Hanania ben Teradyon, and she said to Rabbi Meir, "It is a disrespectful matter for me that my sister is sitting in a brothel. You must do something to save her." Rabbi Meir and remember, she didn't go there on purpose, right? She was enslaved by the Romans. Rabbi Meir took a vessel full of dinars, and he went, right, to basically bribe some Romans so that he could purchase her freedom. He said to himself, if no transgression was committed with her, a miracle will be performed for her. But if she committed a transgression, no miracle will be performed for her. Rabbi Meir went and dressed as a Roman knight and said to her, accede to my wishes, right? He's in costume, essentially, pretending to be a client at the brothel. And he said, accede to my wishes, meaning engage in intercourse with me. And she said to him, I'm menstruating, I can't do it. He said to her, okay, well, I will wait. She said to him, well, there are many women in the brothel, and there are many women here who are more beautiful than I. And he said to himself, I can conclude from her responses that she did not commit a transgression, as she presumably said this to everyone who came to her as a would-be customer. So now, in other words, this gave him the confidence that he would have God's help and to perform a miracle to get her out of this situation, which is against all odds. Like this is, because she was enslaved by the government, the Romans were corrupt, but they weren't so corrupt that the normal thing would be that you could rescue this woman who was enslaved in a brothel as a specific punishment because her father was teaching Torah. Rabbi Meir went over to her guard and said to him, give her to me. And the guard said to him, well, I fear that if I do so, I will be punished by the government. So Rabbi Meir said to him, take this vessel full of dinars, give half to the government as a bribe, and half will be for you. And the guard said to him, but when the money is finished, what shall I do? And Rabbi Meir said to him, say, God of Meir, answer me. God of Meir, answer me, and you will be saved. Fascinating, right? Rabbi Meir is saying to this Roman guard that if you help me do this incredibly righteous deed to rescue this Jewish captive from this horrible enslavement, God will protect you. Right? So you could call out, God of Meir, answer me, and you will be saved. And the guard said to him, and who can say that this is the case, that I will be saved by uttering these words? Now we're on page 18b. And Rabbi Meir said to him, you will now see. And there were these carnivorous dogs that would devour people. Rabbi Meir took a clod of earth, threw it at the carnivorous dogs, and when they came to devour him, he said, God of Meir, answer me. And the dogs then left him alone. And after seeing this, the guard gave the daughter of Rabbi Hanania ben Teradyon to Rabbi Meir. In other words, Rabbi Meir's sister-in-law, because it's his wife's sister. Ultimately, the matter was heard in the king's court, right, by Caesar. And the guard who was brought and taken to be hanged said, God of Meir, answer me. And they then lowered him down, as they were unable to hang him. Are you following? This is like, how can an executioner who has a prisoner, on the scaffold to be executed by hanging, and somehow he's unable to hang him? It's like some kind of supernatural protection is enveloping this Roman guard, and they're unable to hang him. So they lowered him down. And they said to him, what is this? And he said to them, this was the incident that occurred. And he proceeded to relate the entire story to them about Rabbi Meir coming to rescue his sister-in-law. They then went and engraved the image of Rabbi Meir at the entrance of Rome, where it would be seen by everyone. And they said, anyone who sees a man with this face should bring him here. Right? This is the all points bulletin, the silver alert, as it were. You know, it appears on all our phones with the photograph of the person they're looking for. What was the equivalent of that in Rome? They would actually engrave the face of the person they're looking for over the entrance to the city. One day, Romans saw Rabbi Meir, and they ran after him, and he ran away from them. And he entered a brothel to hide. And some say he then escaped capture because he saw food cooked by Gentiles, and he dipped this finger in the food and tasted with that other finger, and thereby fooled them into thinking that he was eating non-kosher food. And they're like, well, that's obviously not Rabbi Meir, because everyone in Rome, Jew and non-Jew alike, knows that the saintly Jewish sage Rabbi Meir would never eat non-kosher food. So obviously this is not Rabbi Meir. And some say that he escaped detection because Elijah, the prophet, came and appeared to them as a prostitute and embraced Rabbi Meir. And the Romans who were chasing him said, heaven forbid, if this were Rabbi Meir, he would not act in that manner, even to save his life. Rabbi Meir arose, fled, and arrived in Babylonia, right outside of the Roman Empire. He's now crossed over into the Persian Empire, where the Romans don't have power. The Gemara notes, and there are those who say that he fled because of this incident, and there are those who say that he fled due to embarrassment from the incident involving his wife, Bruria. And this incident is not recorded in the Talmud. It's something that was kind of known, whatever this was, when the oral Torah was known by all the sages orally, but they did not opt to include it once the Mishna and the Gemara were set down. So we do not have the story of this embarrassing incident involving Bruria that caused Rabbi Meir and Bruria to leave and go to Bavel. Although it may well be that it had nothing to do with that, or it had more to do with this story of saving her sister, and then the Romans were after him. New subject. The sages taught with regard to one who goes to stadiums where people are killed in contests with gladiators or beasts, or to a camp of besiegers where different forms of entertainment are provided for the besieging army. And he sees there the acts of the diviners and those who cast spells, or the acts of the clowns known as bukiyon, or mukiyon, or muliyon, or luliyon, or belurin, or salgurin. This is categorized as the seat of the scornful. And with regard to such places, the verse states, happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the Torah of the Lord. That's from Psalm 1, verse 1. You learn from here that these matters bring a person to dereliction of the study of Torah, since had he not sat in the seat of the scornful, he would delight in the study of Torah. So fascinating. Let's pause there. You're talking about, give the people bread in circuses, right? Well, these circuses was considered the seat of the scornful and absolutely off limits to a Jew, because it will cause him to veer away from learning Torah and a life of Torah and a life of righteousness and mitzvahs. Hold on a second. There we go. Which is pretty interesting. And I was thinking as I was reading this, obviously there are all kinds of entertainments in the modern world. Should we consider that they are off limits? Now, it is true that there are Hasidic Jews and Orthodox Jews and religious Jews that, for example, go to movies, and many who do not go to movies. There are religious Jews who have TVs in their house, and there are many who do not have TVs in their house. There are those who will read secular books, and there are many who will not read secular books. And it's probably based on this kind of a teaching right here, because all of this kind of entertainment could be considered a waste of time, where you could spend your time much better learning Torah. That is the view of many people. I make movies, so I don't feel that way. But as we'll see, there's some exception to why you might go to this kind of an entertainment. And so, if there's a holy purpose associated with it, that would be the argument. And also, when this was done in the ancient world, it was at a different, I would say, this is my own opinion. But I would say there was a different level of, wickedness associated with these gatherings. Number one, there was idolatry going on. And we've seen this whole tractate is about what we will do to distance ourselves from idolatry. Now, you can say that in the modern world, there's a worship of money, there's a worship of materialism, there's a worship of lewdness, and just, people addicted to their libidos. But it's not actually bowing down to statues and calling them gods. So there's many things that are wrong with it, but it's not actual idolatry. Then I would say that the other part that hopefully is a little bit different now is that the entertainment that they had actually involved people being killed, right? I mean, there was a level of cruelty, you've heard about it, right? The gladiators and throwing people to the lions, and just for sport, I mean, the citizens of Rome would go to a stadium and watch people get killed. So thank God we don't have that. Now, some would say, football game, people get hurt, boxing matches, people get hurt. But the goal of the contest is not to see someone actually killed. They also had, watching animals just get slaughtered, bear baiting, things like that. And so hopefully we can say that our society has evolved somewhat. It is more righteous than this society was, and we don't consider murder an entertainment, nor the senseless slaughter of animals some kind of an entertainment. I'm sure many would take issue with this analysis, but that's how I'm reading this. All right, let's keep reading. So they said that going to these stadiums and seeing these kinds of contests is like the seat of the scornful, right? And happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of the sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. Rather, but his delight is in the Torah of the Lord. And so you learn from here that these matters bring a person to dereliction of the study of Torah, since had he not sat in the seat of the scornful, he would delight in the study of Torah. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from another Baraisa. One is permitted to go to stadiums because he can scream and save the life of a Jew who would otherwise be killed there. And it is permitted to go to a camp of besiegers because at times one can provide for the public welfare by petitioning the besiegers and saving the residents of the town, provided that he is not counted as one of them. But if he is counted as one of the besiegers, right, who are besieging a city, then it would be prohibited. And this creates a difficulty, as there is a contradiction between the statement about attending stadiums in the first Baraisa, where it said you cannot go, and the statement about attending stadiums in the second Baraisa, where it says you can go if it's to attempt to save Jews from death. And it is similarly difficult, as there's a contradiction between the statement about a camp of besiegers in the first Baraisa and the statement about a camp of besiegers, right, people besieging a city, in the statement of the second Baraisa. And I'll just mention in passing that, we did check with our rabbi before we made this movie, like, is it permitted for us to be involved in this movie? And the answer is yes, because our movie is a Kiddush Hashem, and it presents a view of Torah Jews, religious Jews, that is never seen in a Hollywood film, and it avoids nudity and avoids profanity and has strong positive messages that would not be heard otherwise. And I pray every day that we are making a Kiddush Hashem, that we're honoring God's name by making and distributing this movie. That's how we approach this. So I think that falls right in line with this idea that if you could go to the stadium for a righteous purpose, it would be permitted. Now, I think what we all have to be careful of when we engage in this kind of analysis is, we are biased, right? And we're going to want to do what we want to do and find the rationale for doing it. That's why you can't rely on your own reasoning, and you have to check with a rabbi, with a Torah authority when you have these kinds of questions. And it's interesting that we're having that discussion right now because today's Aliyah, if we divide the Torah portion into 7 parts, the part that we read today from this week's Torah portion, Balak, is all about the prophet Bilam, right, who the King Balak wanted him to come and curse the Jewish people. And Bilam said, well, I can only say and do that which God tells me to do, and God does not want to curse the Jewish people. But Bilam did want to curse the Jewish people. And so even though God told him, don't go, Bilam kept asking. God said, okay, fine, you want to go, go, but you're only going to be able to say what I tell you to say. And ultimately, this whole path that Bilam goes on will be his destruction. But it's from Bilam and today's reading that we learn elsewhere in the Talmud that in the direction a person wants to go, he'll receive assistance from heaven. So if you want to be righteous, you want to learn Torah, you want to elevate yourself and improve and refine your character, heaven will help you do that. And if you want to, be addicted to your bodily desires and, just engage in all kinds of sordidness, you'll get an opportunity to do that too. Now, the Gemara continues, granted the apparent contradiction between one statement about a camp of besiegers and the other statement about a camp of besiegers is not difficult. As here, the first barais is referring to a case where he is counted as one of them, and there, the second barais is referring to a case where he is not counted as one of them. Right? He went to the city that's being besieged in order to save people who are in the city, not to join the army of the besiegers. So that's a clear distinction. But with regard to the contradiction between the ruling about attending stadiums in the first baraisa where it's prohibited and the ruling about attending stadiums in the second baraisa where it's permitted, this is difficult. So the Gemara answers, the issue is a dispute between Tanaim, the sages of the Mishna. As it is taught in a baraisa, one may not go to stadiums because they are considered the seat of the scornful. And Rabbi Nassan permits attending stadiums due to 2 reasons. One is because he can scream and save the life of someone who would otherwise be killed, right? In those stadiums, right, they would cheer whether the gladiator who fought bravely should be killed or spared. And according to the cheers of the crowd, the emperor would make the decision. I mean, it's a sick scene, but, if you're in that crowd and you can, sort of help rally the people around you, you might save a life. So for that reason, it would be permitted. That's one reason. And the other reason is because even if he cannot save the man's life, he can provide testimony that a woman's husband died, which will enable her to marry again. The sages taught one may not go to theaters or circuses because they sacrifice offerings there to idol worship. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say it is prohibited to go to a place where they sacrifice offerings due to a suspicion of idol worship. And it is also prohibited to go to a place where they do not sacrifice offerings due to it being considered the seat of the scornful. So it sounds like either way, you can't go to these theaters and circuses. So the Gemara asks, what is the practical difference between the opinion of the rabbis and that of Rabbi Meir? After all, according to both opinions, it is prohibited to attend theaters or circuses. So Rabbi Hanania of Zara said the difference between them arises in the case of one who engaged in business there. According to Rabbi Meir, the profits are forbidden as proceeds of idol worship. And as Rabbi Meir maintains that the Gentiles certainly worship idols at all these kinds of gatherings, theaters and circuses. Conversely, according to the rabbis, the profits are forbidden only if it is established that they worshipped idols there, but we don't assume that they engaged in idolatry. Therefore, if one profited from, selling materials that they use in those theaters or circuses, that is permitted as long as you don't know for sure that it was used for idolatry. Apropos the earlier discussion of the evils of scornfulness, The Gemara cites several statements that criticize such behavior. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi taught, "What is the meaning of that which is written? Happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the way of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful. Since he did not walk in the counsel of the wicked, how could he stand with them? And since he did not stand, how could he sit with them? And since he did not sit with them, how could he have scorn? Since he never joined the company of the wicked, he would have no reason to be involved with them in any manner." So what is the continuation of the phrase teaching us? So rather, the verse serves to say to you that if he walked with the wicked, he will ultimately stand with them. And if he stood with them, he will ultimately sit in their company. And if he sat, he will ultimately scorn along with them. And if he scorned, the verse says about him, "If you are wise for yourself. And if you scorn, you alone shall bear it." Right? So they're talking about basically the gateway drug to all the evils of the world is the company you keep. Right? You start, I'm not going to join them. I just want to see what they're doing. And kind of walk over and you join. It doesn't look so bad. You start to participate. Then you sit down with them. Then you eat with them. Then you learn with them. Then you adopt their scornful attitudes about what is holy and righteous in the world. You're on the path to destruction. Rabbi Eliezer says, concerning anyone who scoffs, suffering will befall him. As it is stated, now therefore do not be scoffers, lest your suffering be made strong. Isaiah 28:22. And similarly, Rava said to the sages who were sitting before him, please, I ask of you that you do not scoff, so that suffering will not befall you. What do they mean by scoffing? So in the note here, we have two possibilities. One is the people who scoff at rebuke. Right? When somebody is telling them, listen, the path that you're on, it's a path to destruction. The things that you're doing, this is not righteous. This is not right. And they just laugh at it. They laugh it off. They've got a derisive answer. They mock it. They are running headlong toward destruction. A different definition of scoffing, or a different understanding what scoffing means here, would be callous people who scoff at the unfortunate. When people who are impoverished or ill or disabled, people who laugh at that. Obviously, their midos, their character traits are so seriously warped that they are on a very bad path indeed. Rav Katina says, concerning anyone who scoffs, his sustenance is lessened. As it is stated, he stretches out his hand with scorners, from Hosea 7:5, meaning that God withdraws his providence from scoffers and does not provide for them. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says anyone who scoffs falls into Gehenna, right? The place of burning refinement, where most souls will spend some time, some temporary time, atoning for their sinful actions during their mortal life before they can move on to the world to come. And some will be there permanently, but you have to be very wicked indeed. That's that's like Hitler level wicked. Maybe not quite that, but really bad, right? That's not a place where most people go and stay, as it were. And wrath means, but again, most people will spend some time in Gehenna paying for their deeds. And wrath means nothing other than Gehenna, as it is stated, that day is a day of wrath. Zephaniah 1:15. Rabbi Hanania bar Hanania says, anyone who scoffs causes extermination to be wrought upon the world. As it is stated, now therefore do not be scoffers, lest your suffering be made strong, for an extermination wholly determined have I heard from the Lord, the God of hosts, upon the whole land. Isaiah 28:22. Rabbi Eliezer says, scoffing is a severe sin, as at first one is punished with suffering, and ultimately one is punished with extermination. Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi taught, happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked. This is referring to the theaters and circuses of the Gentiles. Nor stood in the way of sinners. This is referring to one who has not stood as an observer at bestial contests, like contests of beasts. Here what they're talking about is like bear baiting, fox hunting, using dogs to go hunting. Basically, cruelty to animals. Like, you can eat animals. It's not that you can't slaughter animals in order to eat them, but causing suffering of the animals for your entertainment is completely prohibited. Nor sat in the seat of the scornful. This is referring to one who has not sat in the bad company of people who engage in scoffing and jeering. Lest a person say, since I did not go to theaters and circuses and did not stand in bestial contests, I will go and indulge in sleep. So the verse states, and he meditates in his law day and night. This demonstrates that it is not sufficient simply to avoid transgression. Rather, it is necessary to engage actively in Torah study. Thank God, here we are, engaged in Torah study every day. Thank God we have this time together, my holy sisters and brothers. The Gemara relates an alternative homiletic interpretation of the verse discussed above. Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani says that Rabbi Yonasan says, happy is the man that has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, from Psalm 1:1. And this, now we're on page 19a. This is referring to our forefather Abraham, who did not walk in the counsel of the members of the generation of the dispersion, who were wicked, as it is stated that they said to each other, come, let us build a city and a tower with its top in heaven, the Tower of Babel story, which was a project with a wicked aim. Nor stood in the way of sinners. This too is referring to Abraham, who did not join in the stand of the residents of Sodom, who were sinners. As it is stated, now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners against the Lord exceedingly. Nor sat in the seat of the scornful. This means that Abraham did not sit in the seat of the Philistines, because they were scorners who engaged in jest and buffoonery. As it is stated with regard to the Philistines in a later period, and it came to pass when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may make us sport. Right? They were going to just torture Samson publicly for their entertainment. He got his strength back after his hair grew in. He was able to pull, the chains that made the columns collapse and the palace collapse on all of them in that famous story of Samson and Delilah. But I'll tell you something. I'm sorry to keep interrupting with my thoughts, but it just really does make me think. When you think about how common it has become in American popular culture and in movies and the media to mock people of faith, it's pretty easy to sort of understand what is meant by scoffers. Right? People who are mocking people because they're people of faith, that's not people you want to hang out with, right? The Gemara cites an interpretation of a similar verse. Happy is the man that fears the Lord, that delights greatly in his mitzvahs. Psalm 112, verse 1. And the Gemara asks, is that to say, happy is the man, but not happy is the woman? Why is it necessary for the verse to emphasize that it is speaking of a man? And Rav Amram says that Rav says the verse applies to both men and women. And it is teaching, happy is one who repents when he is still a man, i.e. before he becomes elderly and his strength dwindles. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, happy is one who triumphs over his evil inclination like a man, i.e. with strength and vigor. And there's some notes about this. But in other words, if a person is wrestling with his libido, with his sexual impulse, and he wants to just, he just wants to go do what he wants to do, which is all too easy in this culture. But he overcomes that urge in order to follow the obligations that the Torah imposes on all of us, not just Jews, but all people. Sex outside of marriage is prohibited. So somebody who curbs that appetite, that's righteous. And if he used to give into it and then he stopped giving into it, then he's made an atonement. And that's a wonderful, wonderful accomplishment. If he just gets old and sort of loses the urge, and the reason he's not doing it is not because he's made an atonement, but because he simply lost interest, he's not going to get credit for, not doing it, because that was not an act of atonement. A total atonement means that he was doing this, he realized the error of his ways, he worked hard on himself to not do it again, and then that same opportunity came up, and he said, no, that's not for me. That's a complete atonement. Where are we? Okay. And the verse continues. He delights greatly in his mitzvahs. Rabbi Elazar says the person delights in his mitzvahs. The person delights in his mitzvahs, right? God's commandments themselves, and not in the reward for performing his mitzvahs, right? The real reward of performing a mitzvah, a commandment, is that you get an opportunity to fulfill another one. And the deep satisfaction that you get from knowing that you're living according to God's will, which is not easy and requires a lot of sacrifice in making choices that are tough, that you don't want to make because there's something fun to do with other people that you used to have fun with are still doing it. And it's very difficult, right? But when you actually make that choice and do the right choice, there is a deep satisfaction that comes from just doing the right thing and not necessarily receiving some external reward for that. And this is the same as we learned in a Mishna in Tractate Pirkei Avos. Right? Antigonus of Socho would say, do not be like the servants who serve the master on the condition of receiving a reward. Rather, be like the servants who serve the master not on the condition that they receive a reward. In other words, God has given us so much and he's asked, truthfully, so little that we just follow his word. Let's just do it, just do it as a way of saying thank you to God and expressing our gratitude for all the many blessings that he's given us, right? Not because he should reward us with more, but just because we love him and we want to do his will. The Gemara returns to its interpretation of the verse that was discussed previously, but his delight is in the Torah of the Lord, from Psalm 1:2. So Rebbe says a person can learn Torah only from a place in the Torah that his heart desires. As it is stated, but his delight is in the Torah of the Lord, which is understood to mean his delight is in the part of the Torah that he wishes to study. Not every kind of Torah learning appeals equally to every person. Some people are attracted to esoterica and mysticism and kind of like divine experience. Other people are attracted to the study of the law and exactly how do I fulfill my obligations. Other people love studying the stories of our patriarchs and matriarchs and our great sages and sort of like the narrative. Other people love the poetry. Other people love the inspiration. There's so much, right, in the Bible and in the oral tradition that there's something for everybody that kind of naturally appeals to them. And there's nothing wrong with being naturally drawn to one kind of Torah study over another. In fact, you're going to absorb more when you're studying the kind of Torah study that appeals to you, is what Rebbe is saying. And the Gemara relates, Levi and Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rebbe, were sitting before Rebbe, and they were learning the Torah portion, like this week's Torah portion, like I was just talking about Balak. When they finished the book that they were learning and were ready to begin a new subject, Levi said, let them bring us the book of Proverbs. And Rabbi Shimon, the son of Rebbe, said, let them bring us the book of Tehillim, Psalms. And he compelled Levi to acquiesce, and they brought the book of Psalms. And when they arrived here at the verse, but his delight is the Torah of the Lord, Rebbe explained the verse, and he said, a person can learn Torah only from a place in the Torah that his heart desires, right? Meaning he's going to really absorb it if it's a place that speaks to him. Levi said, my teacher, you have given us, meaning me, or him, right, permission to rise and leave, as I wish to study Proverbs, not Psalms. And the Gemara cites other interpretations of this verse. Rav Avdimi Bar Chama says, with regard to anyone who engages in the study of Torah, the Holy One, blessed be He, fulfills his desires, as it is stated, but in the Torah of the Lord is his delight. Meaning, if one engages in the study of the Torah of the Lord, he will have his desires met by the Lord. Right? Doesn't mean that, he's going to get all the food and money and, treasures of the world. I think it means that if you desire to learn Torah, that's a wish that will be granted. In fact, our Rabbi Kusiel was teaching this last Shabbos about chukas. And I forget how he tied to, well, he tied to it because chukas was about the mysterious commandment of the red heifer, which is, impossible to understand. We don't understand it. We just do it because God said so, right? And even King Solomon said, I've tried to understand every commandment, but I can't understand this one. But relating to that, we have in our daily prayer that we bless God for giving us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, which I always read that prayer, that blessing within the Amidah, within the standing prayer, as praising God for giving us, a brain that works and has so much capacity and potential, a kind of gratitude for it. And Rav Yekusiel said, it's not just gratitude. Right? It's actually a prayer. I mean, all of the prayers in the Shemona Esrei both have that sense of gratitude for what's already come and the petition that it should keep coming and that should come even more. And so what he was saying is, you can pray for increased understanding, increased sechel, right? Increased capacity to process Torah, increased ability to learn and analyze and understand and perceive and see and grapple and bring fire down from the mountain, as it were. That's a prayer that we should always be praying for. And in fact, this morning, I started asking for that. I always add something a little personal in my prayer. When I came to this blessing, I said, God, please, expand my ability to understand, to learn, and to teach Torah. I hadn't thought of it that way. And here it is on today's daf. Right? So a person should always learn. So i.e., if one engages in the study of Torah for the Lord, he will have his desires met by the Lord, or his desire for more Torah. A person should always learn Torah from a place in the Torah that his heart desires, as it is stated, but his delight is in the Torah of the Lord. Right? So find a branch of Torah study that delights you and focus on that. And Rava also says, with regard to this verse, initially the Torah is called by the name of the Holy One, blessed be He, but ultimately it is called by the name of the one who studies it. What does this mean? Well, look at the verse. As it is stated, his delight is in the Torah of the Lord. And in the continuation of the verse, it states, and in his Torah, he meditates day and night. Right? So it's first God's Torah that we come to learn and to study, and then eventually you learn enough that you've got your own Torah to offer others, right? You've learned something and seen some kind of insight. Everybody will have some kind of an insight in Torah that no one else had, and he'll be able to share that. It's what intrigues him, what interests her, what she put together, what he, had never seen before and is excited about. And then when you share that with others, it's like you have your own Torah, right? That is a gift to you from God because you toiled in Torah to be learning it. And Rava says, in reference to this verse, a person must always study Torah and gain a broad knowledge of it, and only then may he analyze and delve into it. As it is stated, his delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meaning that he studies the Torah on the basic level, and only afterward does the verse state, and in his Torah he meditates, meaning that he analyzes it. And Rava says with regard to Torah study, a person should always study and review, even though he may afterward forget. And even though he does not understand what he is saying, or what it is saying. As it is stated with regard to the study of Torah, my soul breaks for the longing that it has for your ordinances at all times, from Psalm 119. And it is written breaks, and it is not written grinds, demonstrating that the soul is satisfied with breaking apart material on a basic level, even if it does not have the opportunity to grind and analyze it in greater depth. Because if you keep learning, and if you keep learning, and if you keep learning, there's some things that you just don't understand, and then one day like, oh, now I get it. And that happens because you put in all that time when you're only getting some of it, only a part of it, maybe only the superficial aspects of it. Because you put in that time, eventually you have those, those wonderful insights, those windows that suddenly open. Rava raises a contradiction between two verses. It is written that the Torah calls to people, quote, upon the highest places of the city. Proverbs 9:3. Interesting. The highest places of the city. Sounds like, oh, the best neighborhood. That must be like the most desirable place to be, the highest places of the cities. And it is written far more specifically on a seat in the high places of the city. And he explains, initially, one who studies Torah does not have a secure place to sit, and therefore he is located merely upon the highest places. But ultimately, as he advances in his learning, he is placed on a seat of honor. Right? In other words, we dive into stuff we can't understand. We're in a high place. We just don't know what's going on around us. But if you keep visiting that high place, eventually you're given a seat of honor in that location. The Gemara mentions a similar contradiction. It is written with regard to the Torah in the top of high places, Proverbs 8:2, and it is written, the continuation of the verse of the Torah is by the path. And this contradiction is resolved as follows. Initially, a person studies Torah in a private location, in the top of high places, but ultimately, he will spread his knowledge by the path, in the public realm. Right? First you learn, eventually you teach. Ula raised a contradiction with regard to the following verse. It is written, drink waters out of your own cistern. Proverbs 5:15. And it is written in the continuation of the verse, and running waters out of your own well. And he explains, initially, one should drink waters out of your own cistern, i.e. like the cistern that draws water into one location, learning all existing knowledge, and ultimately one can produce running waters out of your own well, i.e. original thought and innovative insights in Torah. And the Gemara cites other statements relating to Torah study. Rav says that Rav Sachora says that Rav Huna says, what is the meaning of that which is written? Wealth gotten through vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathers little by little shall increase, from Proverbs 13:11. What does this mean? If a person turns his Torah into many bundles by studying large amounts in a short period of time without reviewing, his Torah will diminish. But if he gathers his knowledge little by studying slowly and reviewing, his knowledge will increase. And Rava said, the sages know this, but nevertheless they transgress it, i.e. they fail to heed this advice because they're so hungry for more Torah, they can't help themselves but move faster. And Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, I did this as I studied little by little and regularly reviewed what I had learned, and my learning has in fact endured. Rav Shezvi said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, what is the meaning of that which is written? The slothful man will not roast his prey, and the deceitful hunter, i.e. one who tricks people into believing that he has acquired vast stores of knowledge by studying new material without reviewing what he has already learned, will not live a long life, meaning maintain all that he has learned. According to this interpretation, Yaroch is a combination of the words Yihyeh and Yarich. And Rav Sheshes says that the verse means the opposite. The cunning hunter will roast his prey to prevent it from escaping, i.e. he reads the verse as a rhetorical question. Will not the hunter roast? Meaning, when Rav Dimi came from Israel, from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, he explained, this is comparable to a person who is hunting birds, right? So if, he breaks the wings of the first bird so that it will be unable to fly off, and he proceeds in this manner, all of his prey will remain in his possession. But if not, they will not remain in his possession, as each bird will fly off when the next one is captured. And in a similar fashion, a clever student reviews that which he learns to ensure that he retains his knowledge. Now the Gemara returns, and I'm almost done. Questions or comments, please get them in now. The Gemara returns to its interpretation of the first verses of Psalms. And he shall be like a tree planted by streams of water. The students of the school of Rabbi Hanania say, the verse states that a Torah scholar is comparable to a tree that has been uprooted from its original location and replanted somewhere else. It does not say that he is comparable to a tree that is planted and remains in one place. This is teaching that anyone who learns Torah from one teacher alone never sees a sign of blessing, as it is necessary to acquire knowledge from many teachers. Rav Chisda said to the sages who were studying with him, I wish to say something to you, but I'm afraid that then you will leave me and go. What did he wish to tell them? He wanted to say that anyone who learns Torah from one teacher alone never sees a sign of blessing. When the students heard this, they did in fact leave him and went to learn from Rava. Rav Chisda said to them, that matter applies only with regard to reasoning, i.e., in order to come up with sophisticated reasoning, it is necessary to hear many different opinions. But with regard to the oral tradition itself, it is preferable to learn from one teacher so that he will not become confused by the different versions of the same statements that he hears from each teacher, as he will have no clear authoritative version from one source. Right? Better to get a grasp of the whole tradition first, and then learn the types of reasoning that different teachers offer you, but you got to have that foundation first. And the Gemara continues discussing the verse cited above. Quote, by streams of water from Psalm 1:3. So Rabbi Tanchum Bar Hanilai says, since the root Pet Lamed Gimel can also refer to dividing, the verse is interpreted as follows. A person should always divide his years into thirds, as follows: 1/3 for the Bible, 1/3 for the Mishna, and 1/3 for Talmud. Now we're on page 19b. And the Gemara asks, how can one divide his life this way? Does a person know the length of his life, that he can calculate how much a third will be? And the Gemara answers, when we said that a person should divide his time into thirds, the intention was not with regard to his entire lifetime, but rather to his days, i.e. he should devote 1/3 of each day to Bible, Mishnah, and Talmud, respectively. And finally, the Gemara discusses the continuation of the verse cited above, that brings forth fruit in its season and whose leaf does not wither. And about this, Rava says, if one brings forth fruit in its season, i.e. if he acts in accordance with the precepts of the Torah that he learns, then his leaf will not wither, as the Torah will sustain him. But if one does not learn with the intention that his studies should lead to action, in other words, that his studies should change him into a finer individual who benefits the world and the people around him, right, with his actions. If he doesn't learn with the intention that he should become this better person, then his leaf will wither, right? But if he does not learn with the intention that his studies should lead to action, then with regard to both the one who is taught and with regard to the one who teaches, the verse states about them, not so the wicked, but they are like the chaff that the wind drives away. That's what I've got for us today. And a few comments. Okay. Sharon, it is in the merit of Rabbi Meir finding her sister that we say a prayer for finding lost items. Beautiful. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. Very good. That's right, in the merit of Rabbi Meir. And sometimes this prayer can be formulated as, just as I and the object I'm searching for are revealed before you, so may that object be revealed before me. All right? But we do that in the merit of Rabbi Meir. And thank you for that wonderful reminder, Sharon. Okay. Okay, Samira Saloima Hakohen. I'm sure I'm pronouncing your name wrong and I apologize. Stadiums have different purposes. The one he's covering is more of the one with animals who would fight and at times attack and kill humans. We've had sages killed in similar places and in events which occurred in such town centers as the Colosseum, etc. More recent theaters would be the Shakespearean Playhouse, which is similar to the movies. And the Shakespearean Playhouse was lewd and risque and considered highly inappropriate and immoral. Sports theaters are similar to animal theaters of old, but typically are not violent. Therefore, one is capable of attending a baseball game, but should exercise caution with a movie or play. Just so. Just so. And whenever we're in a crowded place where there's large crowds and there's, a lot of immodest behavior, that is something we want to avoid and guard our eyes from. Bill, I will say the idea of those of us who want to devote ourselves to the study of Scripture that those of us who want that will be granted the opportunity, especially as I both try to find a day job to support myself while doing scholarly work and prepare once again to begin the PhD applications. Bill, you are on a path. You are doing so much holy work, and may God bless you to arrive at exactly the place where you are meant to be, and that will give you so much joy, satisfaction, and enable you to share your light with your students and everyone around you. And we say, Amen. And finally, Chaim in Florida, I'm a little alarmed here. I have been known to scoff occasionally when defending Judaism or calling out idolatry, throw in a little condescension and derision too. Am I going to get? I do it a lot. Well, I'm sorry. Are you mocking idolatry? I mean, if you're mocking materialism and what is the opposite of Judaism and Torah, then I that's okay. It probably could be done. In a way that isn't derisive, just in the sense that it might enable you to bring others closer, right, to learning Torah. So we have to be careful. It's very easy to scoff and be sarcastic. We're surrounded by that kind of behavior and that tone of speech all the time, and I find myself slipping into it too. And especially we have to be careful when sometimes we encounter passages here, right, that are difficult for us to get, and that seem a little bit like, is that serious? Is that serious? I don't get it, and we could easily, it's when we don't understand things very often that we're ready, we're run to mock them, right? And we really have to check that, because especially when we know we're working from the teachings of our sages who devoted their entire lives to the pursuit of a connection to God and God's Torah and expressing the Torah, through righteousness and analysis and love and awe, communicating that to us so that we could follow in their footsteps. That if something seems somehow, silly to us, it's because we're not getting it, not because there's something lacking in the material. So we have to be careful about that, because we live, and we're not alone, right? Obviously, this idea of being quick to be sarcastic and scoff is so universal and has existed throughout history, so much so that the Bible speaks to it. Do not be a scorner. Do not be a scoffer, right? The Bible had to command us not to do that, because it must be that people naturally engage in that behavior. So, please God, bless us all in this class, in this group, that we rise above that urge to scoff and scorn, and really attach our hearts to Torah with diligence and devotion. We say Amen. Have a great night. Look forward to see you tomorrow at the regular Tuesday time, 6 p.m. Pacific.